Hi, my name is Jen Arriaza, and this is a video presentation for my labor relations class. And the topic is the gender wage gap. That's a very heavily talked about issue right now in labor relations, and one of the topics that I think is most important, especially in our generation and for the future of the workforce. Again, the gender pay gap is a issue that should concern anyone in business and employers and anyone planning on entering the workforce, as this is something that affects ethics in the workplace and affects everybody as a whole. The current wage gap hasn't moved in over a decade, and it's not expected to close for over 100 years. That means that our daughters and their daughters will still be getting paid less than their male counterparts a lifetime from now. Young women in college today are going to struggle to pay off student loan debt much more than their male counterparts will, and this is something that should concern college students today. The pay gap between the genders is something that is in place in all states and across all occupations. So this is a national issue. I also believe that people are unaware of the fact that education has helped women advance, but it's not actually doing the job in terms of closing the pay gap for a variety of reasons. About the gender pay gap, especially in continuing education, as tuition costs continue to rise and wages are staying the same. As a quick analysis of the facts of the gender wage gap, the American Association of University Women found in its most recent report that women are paid 79% of what men are paid. So that means that for every dollar a man makes, his female counterpart in the same occupation, on average, will make 79 cents on every dollar that he makes. The gap varies by state. New York is actually one of the states that has the smallest gap, second to the District of Columbia. We have women make 87 cents on every dollar that men make here. The pay gap is most prominent in blue states. Louisiana has the largest gap in pay between the genders. Women in Louisiana make 54 cents on every dollar that a man makes, and that's really shameful. Women of color are affected by the gender pay gap more than any other women. So Hispanic and Latino women and Black women are worse off because of the gender wage gap. Something that was also very remarkable to me is that the gender pay gap seems to get worse with motherhood. In a study done by Career Builder for Mother's Day recently, it was found that single sole breadwinning fathers, 48% of them report to be making more than $50,000 a year. Meanwhile, single sole breadwinning mothers, such as myself, are reporting to only 20% of them report to make more than $50,000 a year. I'm in the 80% that are not reporting over 50 grand a year, and that's something that I hope I can see change in, especially in my field, in the technology sector, in which the pay gap is actually the smallest. It's been proven that in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the pay gap is the smallest. So many experts believe that empowering women and creating incentives to have them pursue these careers is going to be beneficial in closing the gender pay gap. addressing the social constructs of why it's happening. A recent New York Times article showed that for every woman CEO, there are 4 men named John, which I thought was funny. The gender bias and social constructs, Cornell economists say that 38% of the pay gap can be attributed to pure discrimination. And the fact is that there's ingrained attitudes that work that women can do is undervalued. The only type of work that women are making about the same amount of money as men is in the same low-wage jobs, such as administrative, clerical, food service. And as an example of how gender roles disadvantage women from pursuing certain occupations, for example, a woman can choose to be employed as a janitor instead of a housekeeper or maid, but because of the gender roles and what makes more sense in terms of what women should pursue as occupations, women will choose to become a housekeeper instead of a janitor and lose out on about $3,000 more on average just by following this predisposed gender construct in our culture. There are some proactive steps that as business managers that we can take with the policies that we implement at our places of employment and ensure compliance in the FLSA Act and Equal Pay Act, while also being able to contribute in closing the gender pay gap. As an example, for our HR department here, I'm actually going to be suggesting that on the next pay audit that we take a look at the job descriptions and ensure that there isn't any sort of biased pay or there isn't any sort of unequal pay but between the sexes, and that if there is, that specific reasons are given as to why this is happening, because we do need to work together to close the pay gap because it's going to benefit the workforce as a whole. Our firm has been brought to new heights, and I believe that in closing the gender pay gap and allowing more opportunities for women, that other businesses and the workforce as a whole will see ridding of these archaic ideals so that we can move into a modern, more uh, abundant future for women and all and their daughters and all women of the future.